And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Heather Exner-Pirot. She is a senior fellow at the MacDonald-Laurier Institute, a Canadian think tank. Heather, just talking about the benefits of resource development. But there's also another thing that is capturing some commentary out there, which is the fertilizer emission targets. And that is another government initiative which is seeking to reduce fertilizer emissions by about 30%. You talked about potash earlier, which is, of course, used for fertilizer. Does this complicate matters even further?
Well, and here we can think, globally, Europe's in crisis, but many parts of the developed world, Sri Lanka, Lebanon, Turkey, the list goes on, are in crisis. There's 1 billion people who are food insecure right now. And part of it is COVID, part is the Russian war. And again, part of it is just the lack of investment in commodities and the energy crisis. So the world is short on food. There are famines, happening in Africa, serious stuff. And we need more supply, and we can't, and it is very likely Russian and Ukrainian supply will decrease because of the war. And in the middle of this, the federal government announced that we want to reduce emissions from fertilizer by 30%, which from a farmer's perspective means reducing fertilizer. You can't reduce fertilizer emissions without reducing fertilizer for the most part. There's a few other things you can do, but not at that level of 30%, which seems like a random target for them to, not based on any kind of Canadian reality. So very much a concern that we will just have lower yields if we can't use as much fertilizer, and that this will, again, hoarding our resources where we could grow more, we could do more, but are kind of doing own goals on ourselves prevent us from doing those things.
On the flip side, and again, I'm trying to find the positive things to talk about too. The Canadian Arctic has been starved of opportunity and infrastructure and so on. What you're talking about could really kickstart the Canadian Arctic, can't it?
I mean, all the reasons, if you look at the size of our country, second biggest country, just by looking at it, we must have the second most resources, the minerals, the crust of the earth. But actually, we're number 8 in the world for mining, for example. China and Russia are number 1 and number 2. And if we want to have this energy transition, we need to quintuple. The State Department says we need 1,000 times more mining than we have, or 1,000% more than we have right now in magnitude. So where are we going to come up with these mines? And of course, if you look at a map of the world and you want to friendshore and onshore and kind of get off Russian and Chinese mines, then it's got to come from the Canadian Arctic. So the minerals exist, the geological potential is second to none. But it's, again, a matter of the infrastructure, a matter of the return on investment, a matter of the investor certainty that if you put some money into a mine, you'll get it out. And I hate to land on something positive here, but right now, probably in the next week or two, the Minister of Northern Affairs is going to make a decision on whether Baffinland, a huge iron mine up in Nunavut, can go to a phase 2. So far, it's not a profitable mine. It needs an expansion become profitable, and it's very likely that it will not get that regulatory approval from the government because the Nunavut Impact Review Board has said that it shouldn't get it. Too much impact on caribou and narwhal. So again, the complications for an investor, for a consumer, for a proponent, don't get easier in the Arctic, unfortunately. But all the minerals are still lying there, and they'll still be lying there until we get them.
We've got about a minute left. Are you basically optimistic about our chances, or are you on the fence?
On the one side, for things like oil, natural gas, critical minerals, there will be such demand for them. I'm pessimistic about the future of inflation and commodity prices in the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be, the crunch will only get worse. But the political demand for more resources will be very positive for Canada's natural resource industry. These are non-renewable resources. We're 8 billion people, soon we'll be 9 billion people. There will be no end to demand for them. And so when we can kind of get our act together and develop them and get them to our allies and our friends, they'll be welcoming arms for them.
And that's the key point that the sooner we can do that, it'll benefit. It'll start to benefit generations of Canadians. It's not a far into the future thing. It can be something that is available right now. I want to thank you, Heather Exner-Pirot, Senior Fellow at the MacDonald-Laurier Institute, for being part of our program today. Very, very interesting topic of discussion.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Excellent discussion there with Heather Exner-Pirot. Obviously, there's a lot of potential for Canadian resources, particularly in the north, and benefiting our Indigenous peoples as well as other Canadians as well. Thanks for watching today. I hope you found it useful.